So we're excited that you're able to join us as we kick off Career Week. Today's panel, Engineering Our Own Future Path, Understanding Technical versus People Management. This webinar is brought to you by the Alumni Association's Career Week, a week-long virtual event series to help alumni like you conquer, steer, and advance your career. This webinar, like I said, is recorded. So by participating, you acknowledge and consent to your image, likeness, or voice being recorded. We have a lot of information to cover today, and we'll take questions at the end, but feel free to also use the chat box to include your questions. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to our moderator, Bridget Russell, and she'll kick us off. Thanks, Bridget.
Thank you, Angela. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first event of Career Week. We're super excited for this topic today. It's, I think, a really important one and exciting one. And so I'll go ahead and introduce myself. Okay, we'll go over a quick agenda for today. So we'll introduce myself as the moderator, our two fantastic panelists. Then we're going to kind of get into some background information about different organizational structure types and kind of setting the stage for these different roles that we're speaking to. And then we're going to define these different roles because maybe they mean different things in different organizations of technical management versus people management. And then after that, we really want to have this as an open dialogue conversation. So once we kind of define things, we really would like to have this conversation with everyone with questions. And so we really do invite you to type questions into the chat and come on and talk and kind of understand, how do you know which role is best for you? And I will just say my introduction. So I am in a role where I'm approaching this choice. So I'm further into my career. I'm no longer entry level, and I'm on the cusp of choosing between people management and technical management. And so today, for me as the moderator, is hopefully similar to some of you out there who are maybe also approaching this question in your mind. And so I'm a design assurance quality engineer, quality engineer 3. In the tissue technology division for Integra LifeSciences. So I work in the medical device industry. I design medical devices that are used in soft tissue reconstruction surgeries like hernias or breast reconstruction, and also in complex wounds. I've been in the industry about 6 years now, all in the medical device industry, kind of between process engineering and quality engineering roles. And my background degree is in mechanical engineering. I do have my PMP and my CQE. So that's who I am. And let me get to our moderators. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Thanks, Bridget. Hi, everyone. I'm Charlotte Wagner, graduated with mechanical engineering, also like Bridget, but many years before her. And I am the branch manager at Schneider Electric in building automation. I wanted to do this role, this webinar. I had the honor of participating in Career Week last year, and I contacted Angela and the Alumni Association a couple of months ago and said I'd like to participate, and they said, what topic? And I really wanted to do this because in my role as a people manager, I've often had people say, oh, well, if I want to take the next step, I got to be a people manager, and that's how I get promoted, right? And that's not, so I want people to have heroes in every role and be a technical role or people manager. So I really wanted to do this to show everyone there are a lot of choices. So back to me, I'm again, the general manager of the Southern California branch for building automation at Schneider Electric. And I oversee all aspects of the branch, basically the P&L or profit and loss, sales, operation, service, financial and business functions. And I have about 28 years of experience. So my background is very interesting. I did 14 years as a technical role. Then I took up 3 years off to be a stay-at-home mom. Now I've been back as a people manager for about 15 years. I have, perhaps Angela can put it in the chat. I have a blog that I did for the Alumni Association on kind of those 3 distinct roles. And I'm going to be doing that blog as a talk during the Alumni Association is going to be doing some events during Women's Week in March. So I'm going to be talking about that even more. And I've got these various certifications, including my PE, and I'm excited to talk to you today.
Thanks, Charlotte. Excited to have you. We'll get to Dan.
Good morning. Perhaps good afternoon or evening for those in far off places. Dan Newman, I work at the Boeing company. I'm a senior technical fellow in aircraft configuration design and what would be considered now a technical role. I've had the opportunity to both do technical management and people management throughout my career. And I recognize I didn't know originally, and you may not know, and you may need to dabble. So I now work at the Boeing company. I'm on my third try. I started here out of undergraduate. I went back to graduate school at University of Maryland in the aerospace department under Professor Gessow, for whom the current Rotorcraft Center of Excellence is named. And I got an aerospace degree. Back to the Boeing company for 17 years. And then I worked for the Defense Department in their Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, for 6 years as a program manager, which was primarily technical management with a bit of people management dappled in. And I've been back here to the Boeing company coming on 9 years, working in the Advanced Concepts Organization of Commercial out of Seattle, and now back in Phantom Works, the research side of the defense arm of Boeing. I currently serve on the Aerospace Board of Visitors at University of Maryland, so I've had the opportunity to stay engaged with the department and with the university. Very excited to share today my own personal journey, strengths, weaknesses, what I've learned. Hopefully it'll give you some indication of the types of things that may be ahead of you. Thank you.
Great. Excited to have you, Dan. Thank you. Okay, so I want to get into this background information before we start off with questions. And I think the first thing is just setting stage is, where does a people manager versus a technical manager fit in an organizational chart? And so I'm just going to show a couple examples of organizational charts here to kind of help point out where these different roles fit in an organization. So here's a very basic matrix organization of an engineering department. And so in this situation, right, you would have the vice president of engineering, and in a matrix, you would have functional managers. So different functions like structural engineering, mechanical systems, or systems engineering. Maybe you have software and some other roles mixed in here. And these managers manage engineers. So these are the people managers up top. And then these engineers also serve on different projects. And so there'll be a project manager for project A. Maybe it's a new product that's being developed. Maybe project B is a continuous improvement effort that other engineers are on. And then there's a third project, project C. And so, so the project manager is an example of a technical manager. And so this is just one example of how a company may be set up. And Charlotte and Dan, if you have anything to add here, go ahead.
It depends on the size of the company, right? The larger the company, the more we have organizations and multiple reporting relationships. And each of those engineers will have their long-term career is managed by their functional manager. Again, it depends on the organization, with training and development and evaluation with input from their project manager. And if they're on small projects, they may be on many, many small projects, or they may be full-time on a very long-term project. So there's quite a few differences here, both in project size and organization size. But this is a good representation, at least at the Boeing company, which is rather large, significant number of projects and a lot of disciplines on each of these. It's a good representation of the engineering matrix organization.
I might add, that's a very great description, Dan. To put it like kind of in simple terms, I used to be in a matrix organization. The way I describe it to people in my interviews is, let's say you had a car manufacturer and they made 3 different models of cars. Well, on the left, you'd have project manager or manager of car A, car B, car C. And on the top row, you'd have a manager of engines, a manager of windshields, whatever, different parts of the car. So if you're an engineer in the engines team, you might work on the engine of all 3 different types of cars. So that's kind of how I describe it. Just someone who didn't know what matrix was.
That's great. Okay, I'm gonna go to one.
Let me just share. Charlotte points out there's multiple dimensions here, because as she said, you've got the components of the car, right? The engines and the drivetrain. And then you've got down into the deeper disciplines, structures and lubrication, stress analysis, the designers, there's form and fit and function. So while this is a two-dimensional representation, it boggles the mind the extent to which large organizations can create dimensions that might have a leader. And so each of these engineers will have lots and lots of hard lines and dotted lines to different individuals and organizations, and maybe niche. And each of those represents a path for you, because each of those represents a perspective that the organization feels is important and has to have an owner, someone who is accountable and responsible and has the appropriate authority, and recognize that every single one of those people to whom you might report represents an opportunity to move up or to move over. But I'd also say no decision is forever. So you have the opportunity to engage with each of those people and ask them what they do and what makes it hard and what they enjoy, and understand what they do, so that you can decide which one you might try next or temporarily.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to get to another example of an organizational type. I call this mixed. This is similar to companies that I've worked at before. And so this is kind of just the point of this, is that, you know, as Dan and Charlotte were saying, things are complex. So here is kind of like an R&D group that I've seen before, where there's multiple directors of product development and R&D, and then under them, there's different levels. So the darker blue is supposed to represent people managers, and then the darker green is supposed to represent technical managers in this image. So we have senior principal engineers, we have scientists, slightly different than an engineer. We have project managers, and then we have engineers level 1 through 3. And so there's lots of different avenues. And so it's just kind of just to capture that, how there's lots of different paths that can be taken. Okay, next, I just want to get more into defining the roles, which we've kind of edged on a little bit, but I think the key here is that, you know, people manager manages people, a pipeline, they manage training, the development and growth of their employees, the culture of their team or of that department, whereas a technical manager maybe is managing a specific process or system or project, or maybe all three, and they're looking more for accuracy and quality. And metrics like efficiency and costs, the timeline and throughput. And I'll let Charlotte and Dan add anything else onto here.
Sure. I guess I'll do the people manager, and then Dan can do the tech. So for people manager, my role, so those of you that know me, sometimes my joke is I don't do any actual work, meaning work defined in the traditional sense of actually building something or programming something, but my work is to develop the people, remove obstacles, like I call it blocking and tackling, remove obstacles, make sure people are trained, get them promoted or moved into a different role, as it says here, managing the culture. So it's a very different type of work, but I see it as success when I see a person that I used to work with, that I used to be their manager, get promoted or develop a great thing or go to a different role. That's what I see as success.
So you might imagine that your product, your deliverable as a people manager is good people and capable people and flexible and robust and knowledgeable and educated and first-time quality, and their deliver and what they deliver, and breadth and depth. And your deliverable for a technical manager is the product or the process or the quality output that is the deliverable of the organization. So you think about differently what you're shaping, what you're sculpting, and what you deliver at the end, and what excites you.
Love it. I'm going to go into two different ladders really quick, or I just want to show this very basic career ladder of what it can look like for an engineer and what some three basic options are. And as we've talked about, there might be other options too, but you know, in your career, maybe you start out entry level as engineer 1, you progress to maybe an engineer level 2, and then you get to this maybe more senior level engineer 3, and this is where maybe there's quite a few different avenues that you can take on. And so this dark blue would represent people management, whereas this green would be, and this orange would be more technical management, whereas the orange is specifically, you know, project manager and program management.
I'd also just share that the sort of the difference between the orange and the green is that the green, you're responsible for one discipline, making sure it is the best it can be. And in the orange, you're a little bit more balanced, trying to trade things. Think of the green as the making the link in the chain as strong as it can possibly be. And in the orange, you're making a chain and you're limited by the weakest link. And so the very strong links might not get your emphasis. The weakest links will get your emphasis. So I think of the green and the orange as a chain. The green works on the each, you're focused on one link, and the orange is you're focused on all the links.
And great point, Bridget, if we can stay here for a second. This is actually a really good depiction because as Dan said, large organizations can get, you know, really, really big in terms of, so this is a really good, like, simplistic depiction. And as a people manager, I want to, so oftentimes as people are going up those light blue boxes, engineer 1, engineer 2, engineer 3, they think, oh, okay, well, I have to go to the right in that dark blue because that's how I get promoted and more money, right? And my role, one of my big things as a people manager is I want to make those orange and green paths have the, you know, have the salary and the promotion capabilities. So so that's why I wanted to do this, to show those different paths.
No, I think that's great. And I think I can speak to this personally, that I think not society, but like in industry, you think that the main path you default to is people manager. Like that's like the first thing most people think of in their head, I think anyways. So I think this is really important.
Yep.
Okay, this is just kind of more example of actual maybe like actions or day-to-day activities that might be different for technical management versus people management. And these are just some examples, obviously not the full scope. I know we've touched on some of these, but.
Do maybe Dan and I want to pick, I'll just pick a couple on the right to talk about. And you can, so like the first one, career planning, promotions and coaching, that's my, like Dan said, my product is the great person, so that they're properly trained, they have the right role, they have the right, they're paid properly, they're recognized properly. Headcount plays. It's actually funny, just as I was about to get on this call, I saw emails from finance about what my headcount is for Q1. So you know, hiring the right people. I always say like well, I won't go down every single one of these. I'm gonna just pick a few, but basically I'll jump down the bottom. Team building activities and culture. I see some of my Schneider Electric folks on, so we have some very good recognition. We have this portal called Step Up where we recognize people. So I make sure we use that. Then I choose somebody each month for Employee of the Month, and they get a gift. So basically creating the culture, recognition, that people is my product. So Dan, over to you.
And on the left side, it's all about getting the products and the services out at the lowest possible cost, with the highest quality, which drives price. So you want to please you want to thrill your customers. You want to deliver, you want to avoid rework. You want to use your people as well as you can. You want to keep learning. The processes are sort of both of these. The process is used and the people and how they get the job done. and your ability to get the product out, but you need to get the product out in a way that enables you to do the next one better. You can't burn your people out. They have to be ready to do the next one. They have to learn the lessons. You have to stop and document. So it's a marathon. And you have to recognize that your people are just one of your many resources. So you leverage everything on the right side for that resource, plus facilities, plus documentation and communication. Thank you.
Love it. That's great. Okay, so starting kind of from this slide forward, I only have one other slide for questions. And so the rest of this panel is really for me to ask a couple of these initial questions, but for everyone on this call to pipe in with other questions as well. So I know we've had one question in there that we'll get to. I think we'll maybe start with these, but I guess my big question to both Charlotte and Dan first off is, how did you know that you wanted to go in people versus technical management?
So again, I have my blog that I'll be speaking about more in March, but I was, for 13 years, I was a technical engineer and project manager. And I just I could do it. I'm a degreed engineer, I have a PE, I could do it, but it was more of a job. And so when I took 3 years off to raise my son, I really became clear on what, if I'm going to go back to work, what do I really want to do? And I realized that, yeah, I could do the engineering, but what I really found that gave me joy is leading a group. So I'm in Society of Women Engineers and other groups that I've led. So clearly that's what I wanted to do, lead a group and not do the actual work myself. So when the opportunity came up, when my son was 3 years old, to start and run an office, it was a Northern California engineering company and they wanted to start the Southern California office. I immediately jumped at the chance, but it's making others be the best they could be is what energizes me.
Yeah, so while I like recognition, I really get energized by delivering something, making things better. Maybe that's it's an occupational hazard, is that I'm always trying to fix things, much to my wife's dismay. We're in a house under construction. I'm telling them the wall is in the wrong place. And she says, you can't change it till we own it. And I said, we won't own it till they're done. And that's a complete waste of work. What really drains me is rework, is, short-term decisions that turn out creating work for more people, traffic, lines, all those things that constitute waste that could so easily be fixed. What energizes me is getting the product out, the service, efficiently, cleanly. I tried people management. I enjoyed it. I was okay at it, but something would happen and another manager would say, we really need to fill the staff in. And I go, that's a great idea. And I appreciate all those, but they weren't what naturally came to me. I came to realize that what energized me was the product, the process, the efficiency, the quality, using resources well, making sure those resources were available for the next one, strategic thinking. And I've come to that recognition only having tried things. And while I enjoyed them, I was drained at the end of the day. And I've been fortunate to find a responsibility and a role that energizes me. And I find myself volunteering and sticking my nose in more places because I can help to the limit of my bandwidth. I continue to try and help wherever I can because it really does energize me.
Okay, that's great. And then one other thing, just on that same, do you guys feel like there is a difference on what energizes you versus what makes you feel accomplished at the end of the day?
I guess it's pretty similar. Like my accomplishment is seeing that person succeed and changing policy or putting that recognition program in place. That's what makes me feel accomplished, but it is a similar question.
Okay. I guess I would define the difference would be like, you're excited to mentor people, but at the end of the day, you don't feel like you've done any real work if all your product is people. Like, I think that's maybe the idea that I've read or heard from others, is that they don't know.
And it's defined, like, I feel that is my work. So sometimes, so my work is meeting with people. I have tons of meetings, tons of phone calls. So when I'm trying to schedule a meeting with someone, maybe I'll share my calendar. Oh, like, I have available next Tuesday, and my calendar is completely blocked. And they say, wow, your calendar is really busy. How do you get any work done? And I say, that is my work. So it's redefining what my work is.
Yep, that's great.
So I've been fortunate. I work at the front end of business, conceptual work, requirements development, understanding customers, trying to help them ask for something realistic. Every customer is a 2-year-old, we like to say. You know, I want. And my role is to try and help them be sophisticated and realize what their costs are and what they can afford. And so what energizes me is far from actual delivery. So there isn't a better understanding coming out of a meeting with people, better understanding and removing confusion is what I feel I'm accomplishing. What energizes me is actually the opportunity. When I see something that is fixable, that energizes me. What drains me is putting in the effort and we're not getting there. For whatever reason, we're not coming to closure, we're not converging. And accomplishment is removing that haze, that shock of recognition. I really enjoy it when someone sort of tilts their head and squints a little and looks up at the corner of the room, and they stop to think about it, because we've gotten past all those barriers, those emotions, those political perceptions they have, and they actually stop and think about the problem at hand. It's that one moment that is success for me, when we turn the corner toward progress.
Okay. I'm going to switch to some questions on the chat. So thanks, guys, for already putting some questions in. So I'm going to go to the first question from Anna. And she says, in the frame of leadership, would you say that both people managers and technical managers are leaders? And then she kind of has a follow-up question. What qualities make you a stronger people manager than technical, and vice versa?
They're definitely both leaders. So there's a saying, I follow Marcus Buckingham, first break all the rules, that he says that there's no such thing as leadership, it's followership. Like, if people are following you, that they want to see what you're doing, whether it's people management or technical management, that you're energizing them and they're following you. So definitely both. And what was the second part of that, Bridget?
Yeah, and I'll share the chat up here so everyone can see. And so the second part is, what qualities make you a stronger people manager than technical, and vice versa?
Okay, maybe I'll put that one to Dan.
I'm going to take a little pause here, and I want to make a distinction between management and leadership. You can't call yourself a leader. You're defined as a leader when people follow you. They define you as a leader. Management is to execute the plan. Leadership is to change the plan. You know, if you run in screaming head first and turn around and nobody's behind you, you're not leading, right? If they follow you, you're leading. So those are different roles, and whether you're technical or people, management is to make sure you're on plan and you're executing, and leadership is to revisit and define a slightly different direction or a major direction. And so in both the people and the technical, you have the opportunity to lead, and management is delegated to you from above. You are delegated authority from above, and that's management. People do things because you direct them to. Leadership is delegated from below. You don't need any authority to be a leader. You are delegated leadership, as Charlotte said, you're delegated being a leader because people follow you, because they believe that what you're doing is right, and you have influence, not authority. So those are very different, and it's almost an axis completely orthogonal to people versus technical. Not strictly, there's lots of reasons why they're different, but managing and leading are different, and I'm very careful with those words because I have very little authority in my role currently. I only have influence, and so no one will do something silly because I told them to. It's on me to convince them how they should operate differently to be better. And so that's a leadership versus management difference that's independent of people versus technical.
Okay, yeah, thanks. And so for the follow-up question about the qualities that make you a stronger, are there specific qualities that make someone or help someone be a stronger people manager? And are there different qualities that make someone a stronger technical manager?
It's really like, for me, it's the passion of wanting to help it's more indirect of wanting to see the person be the best they can be. One person asked me a couple of years ago, he was a salesperson. He's like, and I asked him if he wanted to be a sales manager. And he said, well, then I'd have to give up all my accounts and give them to someone else. And so that wasn't because he wanted to continue to be an individual contributor, but I want to influence them to be the best they could be.
Yeah, I'll just share that there was an award organization at the Technical Society. I fortunate to be the technical director, and we were doing awards, and there was submittals, and one of the professors, an academic, most of them had submitted their papers they had delivered and their presentations and their invited speeches. And one in particular submitted a list of all his students' accomplishments. And it was pretty clear to us that he absolutely understood that his deliverable was his students, who then became professors. And so that, that's Charlotte's comment, was that she recognizes the accomplishments of her people is her accomplishments. On the technical side, you deliver things, and on the people side, you deliver people who deliver things. So it's really, as Charlotte said, what energizes you is what makes you good, because you care to be doing all those things that are required to completely finish the job.
Yeah, so I guess in summary, you both have both of the skills to be a technical manager or a people manager. Dan, you were a people manager, you could step in any day, and same thing for Charlotte, vice versa, but you're better at these other innate skills because that's what you're passionate about.
Yeah, what would make me reluctant to step in as a people manager is that I don't think I would serve them as well, because I don't think the way Charlotte does about, I continue to focus back on the product naturally.
Okay, yeah, where your mind naturally wanders. Okay, so I think this is a really good question from Latisse Baker. How long is enough time versus too long to try one path before trying the other?
I don't think there is a lot. I mean,
I
don't think there is.
Yeah, I just say it's the energy. It's the first question on the screen. If you're not energized, it's probably not right. But you have to give it enough time to make sure that you're trying, because there'll be roles where the anxiety at the front end is a transient until you get to the steady state. Once you get to a steady state and you realize this is what it is, I understand this, I'm good at it, but I'm not energized every morning. You have to keep doing the job until you don't have the job anymore. Don't get the wrong idea. You have to deliver. You have to please your boss and thrill your customers, period, always. But you have to train your replacement too, so that you can move on.
Yeah, I guess the answer is, if it's not bringing you joy, if there are ways that you can try things out. So I had somebody a few years ago that was, of course I want to be a people manager. And I said, okay, let's give it a shot. So I had him manage the intern for the summer. So that was a short 3-month way where the intern reported to him, and halfway through he's like, is this bad? I have to approve his timesheet and figure out work for him. And he's like, I'm like, no, it's not bad at all. Like, this was a good experiment. So there's a way to do kind of short-term roles to try it out. That could be a way too.
That's great. I think another example of doing short-term kind of people management is if you're hiring contractors on temporarily, and that's like another kind of, yeah, temporary situation.
Mhm.
Okay, this question from Gary, which I think is another really important question that I think I've seen at different companies. So it'd be good to hear the panelists' thoughts on the benefits of gaining some level of depth or experience in one or more of the company's technical specialty areas before considering the move into people management. And so I also read this as like, how much level of technical experience do you have to be in order to be, I don't want to call it respected or touted as a people manager in that role?
Yeah, it definitely helps me. I actually think that a people manager could manage a team without extreme in-depth knowledge, but it helps me out a lot that I am a degreed engineer. Most of in my introduction, I didn't say that most of my life I've been on the energy efficiency side, energy consulting, energy audits, but many years ago I was a building automation engineer, so it actually helps me today. So you probably need some. It's actually kind of funny because people see me as a leader, and then once in a while I'll say something super nerdy about and they're like, who is that? So the exact question was what length of time? I don't know there's a length of time, but having some background is helpful.
I think the humility, regardless of whether it's people or technical, you have to respect the skill and admit when you don't have it. It's good to be deep, right? It's good to know, but there will always be areas you don't know. And I think you lose respect if you don't demonstrate that humility. Sometimes there's a problem when technical people are promoted into management because they're the best technical person. And that's, if they're promoted into people management, we've made a mistake here, right? They were promoted because they were good technically. They should be promoted because they will be good, right? You don't get promoted because you're good at what you do. You get promoted because you'll be good at what you're moved into. And a people manager may not have to know the technical details, but they need to admit that when they don't.
Very common for a technical person to be promoted to a people manager because they were good at their technical. That's very common. And that's one reason why I wanted to do this panel, because I'm trying to change that.
There's also, even on the technical side, I have a practice that I've tried to exercise, and that is that when there's a technical person making a decision, they need to be brought the choices by advocates from each of those. They shouldn't be making a decision because they know best. They should be making a decision because they were brought the information by others. They need to be objective. Just because they're in management, their responsibility is making the decision, but they don't necessarily know best. And their promotion doesn't mean they're smarter. As a matter of fact, usually the staff who are doing the work are smarter than the technical manager. They have to recognize that. It's their job to settle things, but they probably shouldn't be in that leadership job if they know any of the disciplines best. So it's a tough game making technical decisions in technical management and being objective and focusing on the data. You have to take yourself out of the equation.
Love it. That's great. Great information. So we'll move on. Another question from Latice. How does one decide people versus technical manager when skills may fall in one area, but interest and passion fall in the other?
My answer is I would think it'd be your interest and passion, because that's exactly what I was. Again, I'm doing a talk in March. My skills was the degreed engineer. I had all my certifications, but I think for me, I followed my interest and passion, and I had to kind of do a shift to do that. And again, that 3 years off helped me understand clearly what I wanted to do.
You can learn skills, but you can't learn passion.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. You took the words out of my mouth. Exactly. if you need both, you have to go with the passion because the skills you could grow.
Yeah, and so maybe there's different, I mean, different companies have different avenues, but I know some people send people off to management training, or maybe you go get a new certification for some sort of technical skill, but there's these different, right, avenues outside, even outside of work, right, to gain these skills. Just some comments from the group agreeing. So I don't know if I see any other specific questions in the chat. So if anyone else has any other specific questions.
While you're looking at that, I can share a story that that happened several years ago that kind of solidified, like, oh wow, people management really is for me, when I said someone's success. And I'll try to make it, it's a pretty long story, so I'll try to make it a couple minutes. But this was several years ago, and I'll change the names. I'll just call him Bob. I had Bob on the team, and Bob was assigned to me. He had already been with the company, and he actually wasn't seen for, I would say he wasn't seen for the greatness of being him. Other managers were like, oh, Bob's going to be a problem. And I said, really? And I after talking to him and lifting up all the curtains and everything, he was actually really, really good. Bob's problem was that I called it a PR, a public relations problem. People didn't understand what he was doing. It's like, oh, I can't just do a good job. I'm like, no, in the corporate world, there's a difference between doing a good job and having everyone know. And he's like, really? And finally he listened to me, and we called it like working in the corporate world. We had him do papers and blogs on the company's website and different things. And over a year's time or so, then everyone got to know how great he was. And people were like, oh, Charlotte, you really turned Bob around. I'm like, no, he was just great. So showcasing how great he was. And here's how I knew when, so he actually, I was very honored. He actually invited me to his wedding. And it was so great to see him successful. And there's actually 3 stories I'll tell. One of the stories at the wedding. So remember, I taught Bob how to work in the corporate world. So at the time of the wedding, Bob was about 30, and I got the opportunity to meet his younger sister. I'll call her Susan, and she was about 25 years old. And she's like, "Oh, you're Charlotte? Bob's told us so much about you, and you really helped him." And then she said, "Oh, and I'm just starting out in the working world now. Bob's teaching me how to work in the corporate world." So it was like a pay it forward. And then I just was on cloud 9 at that wedding, thinking, wow, I've contributed even in a small way to Bob's success. And I was just standing there the whole time and so proud.
Oh, that's so sweet. I really like that story. One other question I have that maybe, working at a smaller company, I've worked at some smaller medical device companies where maybe there's not as many of these paths available for you. Like if you want to stay at the same company and they say, okay, Bridget, we want to promote you. Here's the next, here's the only option. Like, how do you navigate that? You leave the company, you find something else, or do you trailblaze and try to find a path for yourself at that company, or what?
I'll just go back to the leader versus manager, right? Follow the plan versus create a new plan. You may not be comfortable, you may just want to execute and not deal with the risk of changes and being out there and the pushback from people. Or you may be comfortable, say we're going to go with whatever they say. That's a leader versus manager axis. But as you said, if they're going to promote you to something where you're not passionate, no one will be happy. They want you to be happy and they want you to be successful. So if they're saying this is the only path for you, you have to be honest and have that conversation and say, I'm willing to do it and I will do a great job, but just so you know, these are my interests. You need to be open because that's their people responsibility, is to understand what you want. An interview, I told my kids and I tell other early career folks, when you're doing an interview, you're not subservient. You're not like, oh, this interviewer. You are a future colleague with less experience. You need to approach this as if it's a mutual interview. Do you want that job? At the same time as, do they want you for the job? So even an interview, a conversation about an opportunity, you need to say how it doesn't match your desires. Doesn't mean you don't want the job. It just means they need to understand that for you, it may be temporary, or you're going to mold it to something a little different. So it's really an honesty thing. Be open with them, because if they put you in a position where you're not happy, no one wins.
Yeah, that's great.
It's hard. It's hard being honest in what you perceive as an uphill conversation, but it's really not. They have a job and you have a job, you have less experience, and everybody wants the same thing. They want success. So, have that conversation.
I guess, Bridget, so hopefully there is a path and you can trailblaze and things like that, but it could be that at a current company, the path that you want isn't there. That could be. So that's not every path is available at every company or every person.
Yeah.
I'll share. I've left the company I'm at twice and come back. I'm on my third try, and I joke that they can't get rid of me or they keep dragging me back. It's one of those two. But each time I left, it was good for me. And each time I came back, it was good for me and for the company. Some people burn bridges before they get to them. I try not to burn any bridges as I leave them. And one of my leaving to go to the government was my boss recommending me for that role. It was my boss recommending me to leave the organization because we had that conversation and he saw a better match. And in the end, I came back because that was a temporary job. And I was so excited with how it happened that I came back. So leaving the company can be mutual. I mean, it can truly be mutual. They'll hate to see you go, but they'll love to see you progress, and you may end up coming back. So
yeah, that's great. Okay, just a time check. We're about 10 minutes till the end, so we're at 10:50 here. This is another great question. So the next question in the chat is, are there roles where you have to be both a people and a technical manager? I'm just kind of going on the same small company lines. In a small startup where everyone wears multiple hats, a manager might have to drive the product development as well as motivate and manage the development team working on it. How would you balance the two paths?
Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, okay. So that drives the decision. Do you want to be at a small company or a big company? Because at a small company, you get to do everything, but you have to do everything. At a big company, you can specialize. So that's part of the decision. But if you find yourself at a place that requires you to do both, your challenge is to work harder at the one that doesn't energize you so that you're good at it. The stuff that energizes you will be easy. There are jobs that require both, and you have to do a good job, so you have to make the effort. And if you really don't enjoy or drained by a part of that job, you need to be honest with your people manager and make sure they know. Ask for help, get help, and at the appropriate point, you may decide to move out of that role because you can't. You're drained by a portion of it, and so you can't continue to be good at it and be energized. Charlotte?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Good points. So actually, this conversation is helping me because I'm very happy now, and because I do have the privilege of focus. So when I in my first people manager roles, like when I first came back to work and I joined that company to start and run the Southern California office, and then I later went to another company that I kind of started a division, I did have to do both people and tech. So I actually had to do some of the work, like actually go to site, climb ladders, do some of the work, or at least project manage it. And I would always gravitate toward the people manager. I remember, looking at all these spreadsheets with my eyes glazing over. I'm like, I'm going to order the recognitions. I had these like star awards. I'm going to order the recognition awards instead. And what I wind up doing is I did both as much as I can, but I gravitated toward what energized me and I delegated the rest. And it actually, now I'm finally at a role, so it's complete people management. So I don't do a timesheet anymore and things. So I've gravitated toward that.
That's great. I think, Charlotte, something you're talking about is funny to me because I think some people might be asking, how do I know what energizes me? Like what, that's just like, it's a big turn. And so I think you're one example of, you were procrastinating doing this task, right? And you were ordering that's just an example. I don't know if you guys have more examples.
I was ordering the awards, and I was ordering the awards instead of doing the work. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that's a great way, a great, not notification, but way to actually see that in real life. What is actually energizing you more is something that you're not going to procrastinate, or maybe, I don't know, there's other examples of that, but.
Well, I think the acceptance that you will have roles that drain you. Just accept that there will be roles, because that's the only way you're going to learn that isn't what you want to do. Steve Jobs said, at the end of your career, you look back and you see all these lily pad jumps you make that got you there. But on the way up, you can't make the plan, right? Eisenhower said, plans are useless, but planning is everything. You have to do the plan and then be willing to depart from it. So you think about what you're going to do next, you try it, you find something that you didn't enjoy as much, you do a good job, but then you make sure that you move out of it gracefully into the next one. So finding your passion requires that you also kiss a bunch of frogs. Accept that and work your way through it and be good at it until you can move on to the next one. Because being good at it, even though you don't like it, is what helps you get the next one.
Makes sense. Okay, I think we'll do one more question from Gary here. So he's asking, when I was a junior, thoughts on how to break into management. And so we leaped at the first opportunity to move into management position because I thought it was a now or never opportunity. I later learned that if you do good work as a technical person and are respected by your managers, it is almost inevitable that you will be invited to take on roles with additional management responsibilities. So I guess, yeah, how do you, like you said, kind of stage yourself to break into management?
Trying to understand the question. Like I said a few minutes ago, I had someone express their interest and I had him manage an intern, or maybe you can manage a subcontractor. I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
Yeah, I guess you can ask, and I guess what qualities would you see as a people, what would you guys see as the best qualities to hire a people manager? Is there certain things you want to see people doing? And
whenever someone wants to be a people manager, I ask, oh, how come you would like to go into that role? And I listen. And if I hear, oh, well, it's the next logical step. I've worked really hard. I deserve this opportunity. I did all of this. I'm looking for, I want to help that person be the best they can be. So I'm looking for that answer to those questions. Like, what do you really want to do?
Especially at a large organization, even at small ones, there's an extraordinary number of activities and initiatives that are not part of the job. Technical societies, SWE, Society of Women Engineers, all of these are usually not reimbursed, and you do them on your own time, and you do them because you enjoy it and you want to help. And many of those roles are people roles. So you can show that you can manage people and manage if you can manage a volunteer organization, you can manage a funded organization. If you can get people to volunteer for things because you're excited, that demonstrates that you can manage people. And when you're paying them, it's much easier to get them to do what you want. So demonstrating a leadership position in one of those societies, technical societies, and they're invaluable to the organization, but the organization can't afford to pay. So they love it. You get visibility, you get recognized, you get practice. So demonstrating in a volunteer organization or an ad hoc committee and volunteering for it and showing your capability, both you develop your capability and you demonstrate it. And that's probably the best way to get into people management.
That's great. Okay, we're at 10:57, so I think it's a good time to wrap up. And I'll kind of turn it over to Angela for any final words.
Yes, hi, thanks so much, Bridget and Charlotte and Dan. I really appreciate your time and expertise. And I just wanted to let you know that we will be sending out a recording of this webinar shortly after this. And I was in the process of dropping in the chat right now the full career week schedule. So please check it out. If there's any other events that you'd like to attend this week, we would love to have you. And again, thank you so much, Dan, Bridget, and Charlotte. We'll follow up with you all later this afternoon. Enjoy your day, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you very
everyone.
much.
Thank you very
It
much.
was useful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Time.
Bye.
Bye.